guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to be talking about a quick little mini book haul. Normally I wait for these things, like for my books to pile up for me to unhaul stuff, but like also I just get so angry looking at some of these books that I just need to rant about it somehow, so we're gonna do a book haul. Also, good news, I got an eye appointment for next week, which means after next week I will stop complaining about how I can't focus on the camera because my eyes just get wonky, and you guys can stop hearing me complain about said situation and how I always look weird in the viewfinder, but to you guys I look completely fine after next week. So I'm gonna start off with a book I thought I unhauled a while ago, but I guess not. It's in my bin and I noticed it a couple months ago and I was like, you're not supposed to be there. But that book is Lissy's Story by Stephen King. This is about a woman whose husband has recently died, and as she's kind of going through the grieving process, she digs up some of his monsters as well as going through her own demons that her husband has kind of inflicted upon her. I hated this book. It's been like a few years since I've read this book, but I hate this book with a strong burning passion. I think this was one of Stephen King's earlier works, and like it sucked. It's just one of those things where I was like, you can tell it's a man writing from a woman's perspective, because he like mentioned how like her husband didn't like it when like she wore lower like cut shirts because then men would focus on her breasts, and she was wondering about how men saw her breasts. And I just kind of sat there like, I don't understand the plot of this book. The plot sounded interesting and it's going somewhere I don't get. I thought there was gonna be some paranormal and not so much her contemplating about the loss of her husband, who happened to be a really toxic piece of shit. So it's just like, I don't know what to do with you. I want you gone from my shelf, from my bins, from my life, because it's bad. It's just bad. The next book I'm going to be unhauling is kind of going to be a controversial book, so don't come for me. But that is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This is a historical fiction book around World War II, centered around a girl who steals books, and it's all told from the perspective of death. Now, I thought this book was enjoyable. I liked reading it, and so I didn't hate it. I just was not as attached and as like moved as everyone else seemed to be while reading this book. Maybe it's just me. Like, I like World War II, but I don't have a particular attachment to reading a lot of historical fiction about it. Like, I think it was a terrible time in our history and we should learn from it, but like still just, you know, not that interested in reading books about World War II, considering that entire like subgenre of historical fiction is like flooded. I mean, and like I said, I don't find a personal attachment to this book. I don't look at it and like it doesn't bring much emotions to my body, if that makes sense, to my little kokoro. So like, I think it deserves a better home, so I'll be donating this, and hopefully whoever picks up this copy will find it'll find a good home and it'll be well loved, because right now I'm not giving it the love and attention it deserves, and it deserves some of that love and attention. So yeah. The next book is going to be a classic, and that is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. I bought this a while ago with the actual intention of reading this book. I bought this alongside The Three Musketeers, and while I do still plan to read The Three Musketeers, no plans to read this book. If you guys don't know what Les Mis is about, it's basically about the French Revolution, I believe, in 1832. It's about the Paris uprising. Like I said, I'm interested in reading this book still, but at the current moment I just have no like interest in like picking it up anytime soon. So instead of it collecting dust on my shelves, I'm gonna donate it or sell it to my small bookstore, and hopefully someone else will pick it up and enjoy it. And maybe in the future I will pick up this book and I will get a chance to read it and enjoy it. But as of right now, I'm not about ready to pick up a 1,000-page book with like thin paper and itty-bitty writing. So I'm just gonna save myself the heartache and give myself more bookshelf space. The next book should come as no surprise, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is a high fantasy adult that came out last year, and it's supposed to be about dragons. But somehow, for a book about dragons, there isn't a lot of stuff about dragons. I'll be leaving my reviews for any of these books linked down below, but this one in particular ticked me off because my friend Sarah from String Bean Books and I read this book for a buddy read. It took us 2 months to get through this book, and by the end of it, we were just a big fat, like, we didn't know the point, we didn't understand the ending, we weren't a fan of the ending, didn't understand the world building. So it was just one of those instances where we just kind of sat there like, how many months? We wasted how many months on this book that we should have DNF'd? So hopefully it'll find a better home elsewhere, but at the present moment, I don't want this in my home. The next two books are part of a series, and these next two books literally took me a lot of like deep thinking and like back and forth with this book, and that is The Captive Prince and The Princess Gambit by C.S. Picot. I read The Captive Prince a while ago and I thought it was an okay book. I had my issues with it, but everyone seems to love this book, and it's like a critically acclaimed book. So I was like, I'm gonna try and read the second book. So I purchased the second book during, I think, a book depository, I want to say Book Outlet, one of those two Black Friday sales. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try. Everyone says it starts to look up in the second book, and it's a male-male romance set in high fantasy. But the thing is, the premise of the book already has problems. So this book follows Damon, who is a warrior hero, and a prince who is people that is until his father dies, in which his older brother, I believe, usurps him and sells him as a sex slave to the neighboring kingdom. You see my problem with this? And like I said, it's critically acclaimed. You either love it or you hate it, and I've heard a lot of good things about this book, and I've heard that the romance is actually really good. But the first book had a lot of problems for me, primarily because there was one scene where, trigger warnings for these books, this, as you guys can tell, there is sexual assault in this book, there's pedophilia, there's just a list of disgusting things that happens in this book, and I will leave my Goodreads review link down below, which has those trigger warnings, like a better list of trigger warnings than I could offer because it's been a hot minute. But it's just like, I can't bring myself to really enjoy this series or this book after the fact that, spoiler, there's basically a scene where the main character gets orally sexually assaulted, and the Prince Laurent, who is his like master, was the one who ordered it. So I can't bring myself to see how that could end up in a romantic situation. And like I said, I wanted to try and give the second book a shot. Like, I have not cracked this book open at all. I genuinely just wanted to read it for the male-male romance, and ever since, it's a really good book and the progression happens really well. But I for the better part of my conscience, I can't continue a book written by, I think C.S. Picot is cis and straight, by a cis straight white woman who basically is kind of glorifying male-male romances and gay romances, and like just not being that great. So maybe in the future I'll read the book off of like my library online and like continue, but as of right now, I just really don't want these on my shelves, which makes me so sad because I was really excited to continue on with the series. But I cannot in good conscience continue to read this book, especially since a lot of like white female readers tend to sexualize and fetishize the situations that are happening in this book. And while I agree that like, as long as you can like understand the problematic aspects and like separate them from reality, I'm okay with that. But like, considering how some of them don't really separate that and don't acknowledge the problematic aspects of this book, I just can't bring myself to continue. I'd rather just pick up a book with like maybe something similar, like a similar situation that handles the situation a bit better, written by a gay male author. It makes me icky. Like, the situations that happen in this book, I can't sit there and go like, oh yeah, I can separate this and I can enjoy it. It just makes me so icky and sticky and gross. I need it away. The next book is one that I'm kind of sad that I'm going to be getting rid of, and that is Meet Cute, which is an anthology of like cute little romantic stories with authors such as Jennifer L. Armentrout, Danielle Clayton, Katie Cantugno, Jocelyn Davies, Huntley Fitzpatrick, Nina LaCour, Emily Lord, Catherine McGee, Cass Morgan, Julie Murphy, Meredith Russo, Sarah Shepard, Nicola Yoon, and Evie Zaboy. I really wanted to read this book when it first came out, just because it seemed like a really cute anthology of short stories, and like there's representation and there's also queer stories, so I was really excited. But like, the more it sat on my shelves, the more I just had no interest in picking it up. And I've had this on my TBR a few times, as you guys know, and I just have no interest in wanting to pick it up, and it makes me sad. But also, I'm very finicky with my anthology series, as you guys probably have seen from me reviewing anthology books. So I think this would probably find a better home elsewhere where someone can enjoy it and read it, and it won't just be collecting dust on the shelf, you know? So it's going away, and maybe, like I said, in the future I'll pick it up again, like on my library or at my library or something. But as of right now, I just don't want it to continue to collect dust. When the spine could be cracked open from a good home, someone could find a home in this book. So it's gotta go. The next two books are also part of a series, and that is Discovery of Witches and Shadow of Night by Deborah Harkness. These are an adult urban fantasy following a witch named Tessa who, Diana, I'm thinking of the TV show. Diana, who was kind of sworn off her powers until she meets the mysterious vampire. I read these two books back to back a couple of years ago. I tried rereading the first book last year, I believe. I wanted to continue on with the second book but never got to it to finish off the series. But after my reread of the first book, I just noticed some kind of issues with like the plot and how it was written, and I just could not bring myself to continue on reading the second book, let alone the third book, and finish out the series. Because I remember I had issues with the second book as well when I first read through it, and I was just like, what the heck. So I'm gonna give these guys up, get it to a good home, but I might pick up the TV show because it has Teresa Palmer in it, and like I love her and I want to support her. As of right now, I'm just like, I'm not very interested in what happens with these books. The next book also should come as no surprise, but that is Queens of Lair by Tessa Gratton. This is a high fantasy adult retelling of King Lear by Shakespeare. If you guys don't know what King Lear is about, or like Queens of Lair, this is the feminist retelling, I believe is what it was told, where the three sisters are currently battling for the crown after their dad passes away. I was really excited to read this book. I wanted to see a high fantasy retelling. I wanted to see potentially a feminist retelling of King Lear, because that was not the most feminist book out there. Not that Shakespeare wrote feminist literature. But when I read it, I was just not that intrigued by it. I had issues with how the book was written, some of the characters, and like by the end I just wanted the book to be done, and I did finish the book. I wish I didn't, but I did. So it needs to go somewhere else where it can find a happy home and be a happy hippo somewhere else, but I just don't want it on my shelf, which makes me sad, because like when I bought this book, I was on a road trip with my family. And for those of you who don't know, when I go out on road trips, I either purchase like a beanie with the place I've visited, or I try to buy a book from like a small bookstore there, just so I like have a nice like memory attached to a book or a beanie. And this was one of the ones I bought. But like chances are I'm gonna visit the place that I visit often, because like it's literally a 3-hour drive from like my city. So I can probably buy another book from that same bookstore. Hopefully it'll find a better home elsewhere, but right now it's not mine. And finally, the last book, again, is gonna be a little bit controversial, so don't come for me. But that is again by Christine Riccio. This is a YA contemporary novel following Shane, who has kind of followed the picture perfect life that she had in college. She is a 4.0 GPA, she's gonna be pre-med, but she just is not satisfied with it. So instead she signs up to study abroad in London to pursue a creative writing major, and falls in love to have like a second experience for college, like, you know, again, but better. I did not particularly hate this book. I thought it was a fun book to read. I gave it a 3.75, I believe. I think I have a full video review of that. One of the reasons why I didn't want to put this book up like for adoption basically is because like I'm very attached to the inner cover, which has a thing of like basically a piece of bread with like a piece of toast with butter on it, which is like my favorite snack of all time. But I just had a lot of issues with this book. I feel like, considering this book came out 2018, 2019, it was trying a little too hard to read like 2012 fan fiction, if that makes sense. Like, you know, we had a cute quirky girl. I had issues with the cheating aspect and like the fabulism aspect in this book, because I feel like it wasn't developed enough. But I did enjoy this book. I think Christine has some time to spread her wings and grow as a writer, so I'll be continuing on and like purchasing her other books that she puts out. But this book right now, it does not bring me that much joy. Hopefully the book will find a better home elsewhere. But that is it for my book unhaul. You see, I don't know, there were several reasons why I was waiting for this unhaul. One, I wanted to add more books to the list, so I had more things to talk about. Two, with quarantine and everything going on, I really did not know if like I would be able to actually physically unhaul these books and like donate them. So they're just gonna sit in a bag in the corner of my room until then. But if you guys have read these books and felt similarly, or if you had a book that you recently unhauled because of whatever reason, let me know in the comments down below. I'd like to hear your thoughts about them. But until next time, hit like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which should be a bookshelf reorganization video. I don't know how I'm gonna film it or how it's gonna work out, but I'm gonna do it because like she needs a good cleaning, and I want to fix my shelves up a bit so that way aesthetically it fits with how I like things to look. So yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!